Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another video. Now today's video, pre-warning, is going to be a long one. This is a very big build, so if you're here for the long haul, grab a snack, grab a drink, because this is going to be a long one. If you do make it all the way to the end, I appreciate you so much, because it is going to be a long one. I did try and speed up the clips as much as I possibly could so it wasn't as long of a video, but I've done it the most I can do without it kind of messing with the kind of look of the video and you actually being able to see what I'm doing, and it's still pretty long, so I do apologize for that, but it is a very big build, so I'm not surprised that the video has ended up this long. But today we are going to be making my long-awaited theme park over in Eternity Isle in the jungle. Now, as I've said before on my streams, if you have tuned into those, I have been waiting to make this theme park, and I've been waiting for that final ride to come in the premium shop, which was the inside out like balloon kind of ride. As soon as that came in the premium shop, I knew it was time I could make my theme park. Now, as we have so many rides and buildings in the game that kind of relate to a theme park or a theme park style, I decided that I was going to make a huge theme park. Now, I looked at Eternity Isle and I looked at my valley and I was like, where can I put this? And I knew in my main valley it would take up way too much space, it'd be way too cramped, it would probably take multiple biomes, so I was like, no, I'm not going to do it there. So I actually decided to do it in the jungle. Now, as you see, as we go forward, I use the entirety of the jungle for this build, apart from one section, which is the bottom lagoon section where I've done my kind of like jungle cruise house build that was on the channel not long ago with the new jungle house, and that is kind of tied into the theme park style. It's kind of meant to be a more overgrown area where you would go on a jungle cruise. So without further ado, we're going to go through the entire rest of this jungle and get started with our theme park, so let's go. So starting off, we are in this first section that you go into when you first go into the jungle from the kind of like split off section. So you have the split off to Ancient's Landing and to the dunes, and this section is going to be kind of like our main street area. Now, as it is quite small in here, I wanted this to just feel like a really kind of grand entrance. So I have used the confectionery store, the palace house skin, as well as the like Disney park entrances that we got that are a furniture item, not a house skin. And I start mapping in the pathway. Now, throughout this whole build, I use the main street path, and as you'll see, I had to make so much of it. I stocked up for a very long time on the resources, and I used so much of it because this one is just the perfect one, I felt, to create a theme park. So I start with that, map in the location of where the pathing was going, and then I start making a layout. Now in here, I did want to use some of the hedges from the Alice in Wonderland bundle to kind of block in the area, make it feel like an entrance at Disney where you have a lot of the topiaries and you have the big hedges and things like that that kind of lead you into Disney parks. And I also include obviously the partner statue in the middle as kind of like the grand entrance, and I figure out the mapping of this area. It did take me some time to kind of move things around and make sure I had space for everything. I do go back in this area and chop and change a lot because it is such an oddly shaped area. And I will say at the start of this video, this build is not made for accessibility, if that makes any sense. So if you're someone who wants to be able to get into this biome and mine all the rock spots, and you want to be able to do all that stuff, this is not built for that. I have left enough ground so that I can obviously have things naturally spawn and I can still harvest all the things that grow in this area. However, when it comes to the rock spots, majority of them are blocked. Now, for me, when I'm playing, if I do run out of stock of the kind of things I already have, then I will just move things about to get to those rock spots. If I go on a day of mining, I will just move everything and then spend a whole day mining and then move it all back after. That is just how I play. However, if you are someone who doesn't want to do that, just keep in mind that you can definitely still achieve this, but you will just have to change some things around so that you can access all the rock spots. It's definitely doable. I just personally chose not to do that for this build. But I just wanted to mention that in case anyone was confused and was thinking, how are you going to access anything, or how are you going to get natural spawns? I have kept that in mind, and I've built it mainly for the purpose of creating just a really cool design. once I had done this first section and kind of done it on the basics of what I wanted it to be, I then went into this bottom kind of like alcove section, which used to be where I had the pink castle set up, and I used to have like a really nice kind of romantic garden design for the castle. But I decided to make this an Alice Labyrinth maze. Now, if you have been to a Disney park, I personally haven't been to many in years. I have been to Disneyland Paris, which is kind of like my nearest one. They do have an Alice Labyrinth maze, which I'm pretty sure this set was based on, or at least in that kind of style. So I wanted to create something like that in my theme park in this small little area. I didn't want it to be too big, but I did want to include it because I absolutely love this set. I love Alice in Wonderland. I definitely wanted to have something in my valley that was an ode to that. So I did go in and start mapping in all of the hedges. I did want to make sure I didn't block off the beautiful river that runs through this. And as you may have seen from my previous video, making a maze, it is like a game of Tetris, making a maze, because you have to figure out all the pieces and what works best. So it does take me quite some time to make sure the layout works. There was quite a few items I wanted to fit in here, such as the teacup ride, the pink house, and also the Cheshire Cat like topiary design. And they're quite big pieces, so trying to get them all into this small area without it feeling too enclosed was a challenge for me. But I do start going around and figuring out the layout of everything and making sure I can fit everything in. And once I get that kind of hedge maze layout out, it then means I can start doing the fun stuff of decorating it and making it look really, really mystical. Once I got the main maze all mapped out and kind of figured out how to fit everything in this really small space, I then went in with the exact same Main Street pathway and put it under here. Something I will say is if you want it to kind of feel like a different space, using a different pathway would be a really good way to do that. I personally chose not to, just because I wanted the biome to feel very much like a Disney park where it's kind of all matching. However, there are lots of pathways in game that work so well for kind of an Alice inspired area. You could make it look a little bit more eclectic and a little bit more crazy, like the forest she finds herself in. So that is always a good tip if you wanted to do that instead. And then after that, I started going in with a lot of trees and foliage. I wanted to use trees of all different colors, but still incorporate the jungle trees just to tie everything together and fit the biome that it's in. But I also wanted to include trees of other colors, styles, and just make it look really kind of weird and wacky in here to fit the Alice in Wonderland vibe that is obviously going through the whole maze. after doing the main trees and foliage, I went in with some final touches like some Eternity Isle plants, and I also added some really small little furniture pieces. I included the really cute flower table that we got recently, and lots of kind of like bright foliage and also some swans in the lake behind. I then added lots of the kind of light up lily pads and made it look quite overgrown in here just to fit that kind of mystical vibe, and it made sure there was lots of seating areas in this biome as well. I wanted the seating areas to kind of go throughout the whole build in itself, because obviously Disney has a lot of benches, a lot of seating areas, a lot of places to hang out, so I wanted to definitely fit that. Before I moved on to this really small section up at the top, this section is the smallest section that I had to do, and I was really unsure how to design this. I wasn't sure if I was just going to make it this kind of like overgrown little area that you walk through, and it kind of had a couple of benches and maybe some balloons just to kind of tie it in, but I actually decided to put Woody's carousel up here. I wasn't really sure where to include his carousel, but I felt like up here was a really nice spot because it kind of lit up this area. It was easy to kind of block it in with lots of trees and make it look very hidden, tucked away, but it also just brought a lot of colour and kind of kept the theme park theme going without taking away too much from the build itself. So I really loved putting that up here. I surrounded it, as I said, with lots and lots of trees. It does block off this section where you can go out to the back where we did Rapunzel's quest with the sundial, so bear that in mind if you haven't done the Eternity Isle storyline. That will be in the way. However, I obviously have done that, and if we do need it for Act 3 coming later in the year, then I will just move things about accordingly to whatever we need to do. But until then, I wanted to pop this here and just give it this really nice bright look and kind of bring the theme park magic to this area. So I went in with lots of foliage, decorated around that, and I added a couple of benches and some other decorations in here just to keep the theme going. But I just felt like this area is so tough to figure out what to do in here because it is so small. So I'm quite glad that I managed to do that, and it definitely kept it on theme with the rest of the biome itself. Once I finished off this smaller section, I then went to the section just below this, which is again kind of like a medium-sized section, so it's not too big. And in here I decided to make this kind of like a spooky horror section. I wanted to give it some Halloween vibe, but also just make it feel like kind of an area where it's a little bit more spooky. Something I was going to include in here was the Haunted Mansion, just because obviously there is Haunted Mansion in Disney parks. However, that building is huge, so I was like, it's not going to work in here, and I knew I could do a different style build for that house in my main valley. So I did leave it out, but something I did include was the Tower of Terror. I love this building. It's so huge and just looks so much like the one in the parks, so I definitely wanted to fit the theme of that and give it a spooky vibe. I also included the carousel that we got from a Nightmare Before Christmas set. It's kind of like a Christmassy theme set, but I felt like in here it would definitely work, especially accompanied with lots of the other Nightmare Before Christmas items we have from the December update and the premium shop. So I did kind of start dotting in some of the spookier items I had and figuring out where I was going to put everything. This actually, spoiler, ends up being one of my favorite areas in the whole build, because even though it is this kind of like slightly smaller section, I just feel like the theming of it works really well, and I kind of like how it's a slightly different vibe to the rest of the theme park. Obviously the rest of it is very bright and colourful and kind of like positive, whereas this one is a little bit more on the spooky side, and I can't wait until later in the year when we get some more kind of like Halloween and spooky items that I can start like adding to this and make it even kind of creepier. But I really love doing the section. So obviously I started off with those two main furniture pieces, and then I started adding all the other ones I knew I wanted to include. I also wanted this build to have like a little section with some snack machines and also some benches, just to kind of fill out this like long section on the back wall. And then I started looking at all the other furniture I could kind of rearrange in here and what would be best, because there was quite a lot to include, so I wanted to make sure I could use as much of it as possible to bring the spooky vibe in here. To finish off this area, I added in obviously a lot of trees. I added some spookier trees in here, like some of the dead trees and also some with the purple kind of colouring, just to kind of add to the element and make this area feel a little bit secluded, but obviously use as well some jungle trees to keep it tied into the rest of the build. Then I added a lot of foliage in lots of different colours and styles to kind of block out this area before moving on to the bigger bottom section. Now this is the one next to the kind of like main entrance section, and this is one of the bigger parts. So in here I knew there was going to be a lot of different areas, so I did figure it out and try and move things about a lot in this section. You'll see as I go, I kind of like build smaller parts and then move things about and then move things again, and it took me a long time to get this where I wanted it to, but I started off with making a kind of entrance out to the dunes. Then I went in and started placing in the bigger items such as the Ferris wheel and the rides, and figuring out how I could utilize those in here. And it does, as I said, take me a lot of time to figure it out. I do start running out of pathway at this point, so I was at the point of the build where I really needed to just sit and have a look at the layout and figure it out, because this area is so big and open. I knew I'd have to utilize furniture to be able to kind of like divide it off into sections and make it not look too kind of sparse and wide. Obviously a build like this, you do want it to kind of be like that. You want the wider pathways and the more kind of obvious pathways because it's a theme park, so it needs to be able to function like that. But I did still want it to have kind of these more defined areas so things didn't look too gappy. So I did start by going in with some of the hedges again, and started dividing up this back left area where the Ferris wheel is to try and give it a bit of structure and figure out how I wanted to do the layout and what would work best to kind of create a little courtyard area that I wanted to make. For foliage in this biome, I wanted to use again lots of the jungle trees but also incorporate other kinds of trees, and for the kind of like smaller bushes and things like that, I used a combination of base game and Eternity R ones. I wanted to feel very bright and colourful in here, and after I'd kind of dotted those in around some of the areas I knew would be blocked out, I went to the back left corner and created a little kind of like kids park section. I really wanted to create something in here using the items we got from the Bonnie's toy set, which is kind of like this really cute slide, the kind of like oven setup, a bookshelf, and then the little flower table. I wanted to incorporate these in the theme park, so it would be an area kind of made for smaller children that can't go on the bigger rides. So I wanted to use this little section in the back left corner to create that. So I did work around with that for a while, trying to get the spacing right, incorporating as many of the different toys I could. I then went around and added in a lot of benches across the whole biome. I did use the previous Star Path benches in this rather than the craftable ones. However, if you didn't pick them up from the premium shop a few weeks ago, the craftable ones will also work perfectly. And I started figuring out how I could do the layout of everything in here, fit everything I wanted to in it, and then I started figuring out where all the different furniture I had was going to go in the biome. So I started kind of like randomly going around and placing out everything I knew I wanted to use, making sure I could not forget anything and make sure that I could fit everything I wanted to in. So that was kind of my plan at this point, to just go in, see what I had and make sure that I didn't miss anything in the build. And that kind of helped me with the layout and figuring out how to fit in everything, but also make sure everything was accessible and kind of matched the area it was in and fit the vibe I was going for. Once I'd figured out the furniture I was going to use, I actually decided to create a kind of more simple courtyard in front of the Ferris wheel using the Beauty and the Beast topiary. I wasn't going to use this in here, but actually I felt like it worked really well to kind of fit the Disney vibe, and I wanted to use that as kind of like a framing around the Ferris wheel, and then I could also include the really cute kind of like Star Path tables that we got around this, add in some chairs, and then eventually obviously I'll put on some food just to give this area a really nice bright look. I felt like with the space I had in here, I could definitely kind of use this spot to create this, and I think it really highlights the Ferris wheel and makes it more of a kind of like visual standpoint, which the Ferris wheel definitely should be because it's such a gorgeous ride that we have. It's one of my favorites, so I definitely wanted to kind of utilize the space to be able to frame that how I wanted it to. It did mean I had to move things around a little bit and change up how I was kind of displaying things in that first section, so I do move the up balloons over to that first section and kind of moved the other items around, and then I went up to the top section and started designing up there. This is the final section of the build, and again this is another larger size biome, but in here I'd already kind of put all the items into the spots I thought they were going to go. I do change things up a little bit as I go through to kind of make sure everything fits, but because everything was pretty much in its space and planned out, it meant that I could kind of go in, put the pathway in, and then start designing around that. So in here we do have some really big items like the Buzz Lightyear kind of themed ride we have in the Star Path, so I kind of wanted to get that in a spot straight up and make sure that it was ready in its place and I didn't have to worry about moving it because it just barely fits anywhere in here. But I did figure that out, and then I obviously popped in lots of seating outside Pizza Planet. I wanted this to have a really cute kind of like outdoor dining section area using the items from the Wanderers bundle, which if that does come back in the premium shop and you do not have it, I would highly recommend it. It is one of the best bundles in the game in my opinion. So I did pop those outside, but you could definitely use the Star Path tables and chairs out here, or even just some other plain ones. I think would work really well, and I wanted to create a really nice Toy Story themed seating area out here. So I started figuring out the layout of that and making sure I could kind of fit everything in how I wanted it to. Once I started placing in the majority of the trees around the kind of section I'd completed by the Buzz Lightyear ride and the Pizza Planet, I then went into this really small little section which I decided to create like a splash pad. I don't know if anyone's seen these in like kids parks but also in theme parks, where you get the kind of like splash pads on the floor that children will run into and it kind of sprays up water and stuff like that. I really wanted to create something like that in here, so I did play around for a long time with what items I could use, and I felt like doing this kind of like metal look one using the ancient fish was a really good idea. I did see it on Pinterest, so if I can find the name of the person who I saw this by, I promise I will credit them in the description. If I can't find it, I'm so sorry, but if I ever do, I will update the video. If you do know and you've seen it yourself, please do let me know in the comments, because I really would love to credit them for the idea with the fish, because I saw that and I was like, oh, that's the perfect item to use. So I did create a splash pad in here, and I placed some of the fountain tiles as well as the kind of like ancient water fountain in here. I do go back in later and edit this, but as I said, if you do know who this is, and if I haven't credited them in the description, it's because I can't find it. I'm so sorry, but if you do know, please do let me know down below, because I saw it on Pinterest and I absolutely loved the use of the fish in here. Once I'd done that, I obviously added some iron brick fence around just to kind of enclose the area, and then I surrounded it with lots of foliage. I wanted it to feel very overgrown and natural in here. And in front of that, I have the magic carpet ride. Next to that, I did just place some of the camels from the Star Path. I think these are just really cute and they tied in well with the splash pad, because obviously those camels spit water. And once I'd done that, I carried on with the pathing to lead out to the jungle zone below, and I also started figuring out how I was going to display everything around the front of the biome. I wanted to get a lot of the trees and a lot of the kind of like overgrown foliage areas placed in pretty early. I did have to find a spot for the well to go in, because this area of the biome has a well, and I was like, how am I going to display this in a theme park? It's going to look so strange. But I did find this tiny little corner to pop it in, and I surround it with some foliage and stuff like that just to blend it in. It is a bit annoying because it's slightly out of sorts of what you'd see in a park, but I just thought it might be kind of like one of those magic wishing wells you throw a coin into and make a wish. We're just going to pretend it's that. But I did pop that in and then started figuring out the trees around the rest of the biome that was left. I wanted to kind of get that blocked in to give me a good idea of how I could structure everything and where I could put these final furniture pieces, including the slinky ride and also some of the kind of like food carts and things like that. Now in this section next to the slinky ride, it was kind of this open section. I didn't really know what to put in here. I was debating moving the little kids area up here, but actually I decided I had so many of these kind of like Wreck-It Ralph game machines that I hadn't used at all in any biome in my valley or my Eternity Isle, and I thought that actually this is a very good spot to put it in a theme park. It kind of reminded me of an arcade you would get in kind of a theme park, and you would go in and you'd play all the different games. So that was the inspiration here. I did go in and put the start sign that you can make with the time bending pieces over the top of this, and then put all the rides in. Now unfortunately after this point the footage got corrupted somehow and it just completely appeared blank. There was nothing left. But after that, after creating that area, I literally just went in and added a couple of balloons here and there, a few bushes and hedges around the arcade area, which you'll see in the tour as I walk around the biome, and then I can kind of show it to you properly. So I apologise for that, but I'm not sure what happened. It was just that last like 5 minutes of footage. It wasn't much at all, but after that I did go and do that. So let's do the tour and I can show that all off to you. So here is the completed theme park. I will take you on a tour. We will start in this like divided section where you go to the 3 different biomes, and as we head up into the jungle, we have our entrance into our theme park. There's just some balloons and some banner decorations out here, and then as we go through the Disney Park entrance item, we have got the kind of like main street area. This wanted to be the kind of like introduction into everything. I wanted it to feel like you just walked into Disney. So I used some of Oswald's train tracks actually under here to kind of create the theme of like when you have the tram line in Main Street. And then I put the Disney Palace at the end with the parks statue in front, the confectionery store on the left with some tables with just some sweet treats and snacks on. We have the up balloons, and we also have some benches on the left as well. And then as we head across the bridge, we just have this really cute balloon arch introducing you into the first largest section. So as this is the first largest section, there's a lot going on. So in front we can see obviously the Dumbo ride straight away, and on the left we have this really cute little courtyard area I use the topiary for, and obviously put some more tables and chairs around here with some snacks on, and then obviously the Ferris wheel at the back, which is a really nice kind of like focal point in the biome and just looks amazing at all times of the day. Directly opposite that we have some of the food stalls that we got in the previous Star Path, and some food on those, as well as some like popcorn buckets and things like that, next to the new Inside Out ride, which I really love the look of. I feel like it works really well in here, and I will add some Inside Out furniture around this when we do get some in the future. On the left of the Dumbo ride, we have another entrance going out to the dunes with some benches and clocks. Next to the Monsters Inc. car ride, this just fit perfectly in this corner and meant it fit really well on theme with this little section next to it, which is the little like kids toy section. Now I wanted to create this to kind of give the idea that it's for little kids who are too small to go on the bigger rides and kind of have a place to hang out, and that was my theme in here. So I used a lot of the items from the Bonnie's toy set as well as some others to kind of tie it all together. Now before we head down to the next section, which is the maze section, I'll show you the final bit in here, which is just a little souvenir stand and a photo booth with just lots of other decorations around, and obviously a lot of benches and trash cans throughout the whole biome. And as we head down into this lower section, we have our Alice maze. Now in here I wanted it to be really bright, really colourful, and feel like it was this hidden tucked away area. As you can see, I used the pink castle to kind of be the focal point in this area next to the Cheshire Cat topiary, and create this like open courtyard area when you first come in, and then tucked away in the left we have the Mad Tea Party ride with some of the fountains and then the labyrinth sign over the top. I just feel like this area looks so sweet and would be a really nice place to kind of hang out and go on the ride. As we head out from there, on the left we have a little table with one of the popcorn buckets in. I just thought this would be a nice little addition in here. And as we head into this little like dead end section, we have the Figment topiary with another bench as kind of like another little hidden area where you would hang out when you get lost in the maze. Heading out of there, and I've left a little gap to the river so you can see the swan boats in here. I imagine this is where people would get on and go and like travel across the whole theme park. That was kind of my thought with it. And finally, out of here we have the last kind of exit area where we have the caterpillar statue, and then we head up to the second large section in the whole theme park. Now as we head up here straight away, you can see we have our wishing well on the right. I obviously needed to incorporate this into the biome, and I felt like this was the perfect place to put it, just kind of tucked in the corner, and use some foliage to kind of decorate and blend it in. We then have a little seating area as well as some more food stalls with lots of sweet treats and lots of balloons about, just to be another place for people to grab snacks as they're going around the park. Directly opposite that we have Pizza Planet, which is a really nice furniture item, and obviously it just fits in well with the theme park theme. And next to that I've included a bunch of diner tables and chairs. These are actually from the Wanderer bundle in the premium shop, and these just are covered with different types of foods and snacks that people would enjoy and hang out here and eat. On this little exit section we have the alien claw machine as well as another one of the souvenir trucks, just to keep the theme going throughout. And next to that we have a little arcade section. Now this is where the footage got corrupted, so this was the area that I did when that issue happened. But I created just this little arcade, and I used the time bending part to kind of give it the start sign and make it quite grand. And opposite that we have the Buzz rocket ship ride we got in the star path. Next to the arcade we have the Slinky ride, so it is all very Toy Story themed a lot up here. I wanted to kind of keep all the same Toy Story rides together, but then we also have some others in here. So in the back right corner we obviously have our splash pad. I love how this looks. I think it looks like such a cute cozy area, and I actually in the future would love to make more of these, maybe on a bigger scale and using other furniture. In front of that we have our magic carpet ride with the two water camels in front on either side. I just feel like the gold really tied in with that well and blended it all in. And as we head up we have got this really small section where I obviously included Woody's carousel. I really love how it looks in here, and the trees kind of managed to block it all in and blend it. And then we just have Goofy's stall and some seating on the other side before we head down to the final section. Now this is the final section, and again it's like a medium-y section. This is our spooky area. So first off we've got some benches and some snack machines when you first come in to kind of fill out this back wall. We then have some snacks and things like that, some popcorn buckets, and the Haunted Mansion piano, as well as the Nightmare Before Christmas carousel. I just think this fits really well in here and actually didn't end up looking too Christmassy, which was very good. In the centre we have got the Nightmare Before Christmas train track set. I love this, and putting the fountain in the middle just made it a really nice centrepiece. Obviously we have the Tower of Terror behind that, and then we have this little kind of like photo area with the Maleficent throne. I felt like this looked like somewhere you'd kind of like come and get your picture taken in the theme park. And then we have Zero's house here finally, which I have popped him in it just to be a nice kind of like illusion. As you can see, the shots kind of just go through every different part of the biome, as you guys saw, and I absolutely love how my theme park turned out. It's been a long time coming, and I've been waiting until this star path was over and we got all the rides in the premium shop before I could get this build done, and I'm genuinely really happy with how it turned out. I do think there will be things I probably add and change as we go forward and we get more items in the game. I don't think we're going to be getting any more rides for a long time, which is very good because I don't have space for them, but it will be nice to incorporate other things we may be getting in the future into this build. Now, as I said at the start, this build isn't necessarily made to work to be able to go around to all the mining spots and use it to be functional, but you could definitely make it functional if you wanted to, and you could definitely do this on a smaller scale. You would just condense everything down, but I really wanted to use the opportunity to make this really big theme park. I feel like it looks really cool in the jungle because of all the bright trees and colours, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Now, as I said, this was a very long video, so I do apologise for that. As you can see, I sped up the clips as much as I could. I even lost some footage at the end because it was so long. It took me about 3 or 4 hours to do this build in total. Some of that was due to the bug where things go invisible and things like that. That did cause me some issues whilst building, but at the same time it took me such a long time because it is such a huge build and there was a lot of thought and care put into it, and I wanted it to be as accurate as I possibly could and really give me that feel of being in a Disney park, and I feel like I achieved that, and I really love how it looks. I did go and have a little walk around the other day, and I just am really happy with how it turned out. If you did stick around, let me know down below what you think of the build, and if you did stick around, thank you so much, because this was such a long video. But this does mean that my Eternity Isle is completely finished, so there will be an Eternity Isle tour coming soon to the channel. I know a lot of people have been asking to see my completed Eternity Isle, which I have had to put off for a long time because I wanted to do a theme park and I wanted to make sure I had all the rides for it. So I do apologise that it took so long, but it is coming because everything is now completely finished. So I'll have that up on the channel for you guys soon. So if you're excited for that, let me know down below. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you so much for 1,500 subscribers on the channel. It's crazy that it's got to this point, and I'm genuinely so grateful for every single one of you who subscribes, chats, comes into the live streams, comments on the videos, or even just watches them and kind of lurks. You all mean the world to me, and I'm very, very appreciative of it. But I hope you all have a lovely week. I'm very excited to see you in the next one, and I will see you soon. Bye!